Thank you for honoring to come to the podcast, even though I've just hijacked you to come to the podcast.
You did.
Since you somehow surprisingly ran into the studio.
Yes.
Without my notice, but you're also very lucky that today I worked from here. Usually I am a remote worker. I prefer to stay at home, work from there, and then come in here when there is like really purpose for me to be here, right?
Look at destiny bringing us together.
Exactly. So it was quite inspiring that today, Tuesday, I had some things to catch up with the team on a few deliverables we have to give to clients. Then you come in. So, but yes, welcome to the podcast. I'll give you this chance to broadly introduce yourself for us and our big, huge listeners to understand the person you are.
All right. Well, hello there, big, huge listeners, and for those who are curious to understand who I am. All right, Mark. No, okay. Let me stop playing. So, hi everyone. My name is Erica Daniel. I am an African American. I'm from the U.S. Originally from Ohio. For the last 10 years, I've been living in Accra, Ghana, and for the last 2 months, I have found myself in the Pearl of Africa, wonderful Kampala, and have been thoroughly enjoying myself. But that does not tell you who I am. So in my day-to-day life, I am a sister, I am a daughter, I am an auntie, I am a good friend. And in my professional life, I'm someone that works in international development, and I love working with building resilience in communities. In my today life, and probably the thing that brought me here, if we're being honest, Mark, is the fact that I am an intimacy coach. And the first question I always get is, what is an intimacy coach? And I love to include it in every introduction that I make of myself. As an intimacy coach, I work with normal people, everyday people, just like you and I, to help deepen our physical and emotional intimacy so that we can have higher, better, more dynamic experiences in all of our relationships, specifically our most sexual relationships.
Are you sure? All of our relationships?
Well, yeah, all of your relationships, because if you think about, like, you're working right now, right? And you said you mostly work virtually, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people are interacting 40 plus hours a week with their colleagues.
Yeah.
And so you actually end up spending more time with your colleagues than you do your families and your loved ones. And so you also need to know how to be in relationship with those people. So I do corporate trainings as well on how to increase your efficiency and your effectiveness and how you can work better together in the workplace through an intimate lens.
Interesting. That is extensively what we shall look at. But you also said you work with communities?
Yeah, so when I first got into this whole living abroad thing, it was because I was working with the World Bank, and so I was doing what a lot of people coin as international development.
Yeah.
And so that's what took me to Ghana in 2013.
I thought it's Ghana, you were in Ghana for school.
So originally I was in Ghana for school. So from 2007 to 2008.
I forget there was like a return, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Now it makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about community and society. What have you made of community in from your perspective? What do you think about community?
From my perspective. Okay, so I'm a sociologist, so obviously communities are very important from my philosophical perspective, right? My educational perspective. And I would say that it's also really important from my social perspective. I think that we live, thrive, and be in community. And we are allowed to show up as we are in the communities that we have, if you have the right communities. If you don't have the right communities, then those same communities that are meant to embrace you, celebrate you, propel you, end up stifling you, making you feel rejected and unwanted, making you feel misunderstood. So I think it's important to have multiple communities as you're growing and thriving in life so that you can show up as your most authentic self. And sometimes we don't get to choose our communities, right? Like we don't get to choose the families we're born into. Some people don't get to choose the schools that they go to. Yeah. And so if you're having communities around you that are not from choice and are not elevating you, then learning to step back from that community or learning to really take on what you need most from that community. But I do think communities, generally speaking, are really important. They're our social element. They're the spaces that we can thrive the most in as well. Community it's a very layered question because there's so many identities with community.
Yeah. So you talked about being how they help you being your authentic self, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's been conversations on my timeline. So I microblog a lot with my Twitter. Should I call it X or Twitter? It really doesn't matter. But yeah, with my X account, so and profile, so I get to connect to the world from that platform. And so recently, there's been conversations on employers looking through what you post on social media, right?
Yeah.
And basing on that to maybe hire you or something, or it could get you fired. Yeah, something I totally don't agree with, because one, in being my authentic self, I want to use my platform to express my thoughts. Right. The initial basis of most of these applications was what's on your mind. So sometimes we all have, our minds are dirty places. We all have all these weird thoughts that maybe we keep to ourselves. And thanks to social media, we can just, put them out there and see how the world reacts to those. So rather than just creating banner accounts or shadow accounts, I would still love to express myself as me with community. But I would love to pick your mind on what do you think of that? The fact that my personal space is used against me instead of my qualifications for a job. Then they go ahead to get into my personal space, and it's quite tricky because you cannot use my discourse and maybe how do I want to term this? The term runs out of my mind, but you really can't use, say, my intellect or my lack of from your perspective against me. So that's what I feel about it. And so the question here could be maybe how is the internet and in social media, in quotes, affecting community and society? Yeah, so it could be affecting or affecting. Yeah.
Well, I think the first thing I would say is, like, you're right, it can be really tricky, and it sounds like for you it's also quite violating, right?
Yeah.
That, like, it's an attack on who you are and your ability to express yourself to the world. And so I want to honor that before I give any response, because I think that that's really important for you.
Yeah.
And with that, you're kind of asking, how does it affect and effect community? And I think that, again, that's a very layered question, because you're now bringing in this professional community with this.
So do you think the professional community should mix with, like, the social community? Like, look, apps are designed differently, right? LinkedIn has its own purpose. You want to be on there and you want to be professional. But speaking of X, I want to be there and be a troll, probably just pick on someone, laugh, the jokes and memes on there, left, right, and center. So I want that environment to keep. I don't want to be there and sound smart for the sake of it, because you know what? I can use AI and trigger out some very intelligent stuff and tweet that every morning. But that's boring. That's basic. That's cliche. That's not what people are up there for. I want to be in the fun of it. I want to feel alive in my personal space.
Yeah.
But then my job kind of takes that away from me.
Can we also be honest about something right now? Which is, a lot of people use social media to also show a different side of who they are, right? Yeah. So it's like their alter ego is, you're able to express your alter ego because you don't fear consequence. Because once it's out there, and I said what I said. You might be the quietest person ever. Yeah,
most of the times, actually, people who are extremely loud are very quiet people when you meet them.
Exactly. So it gives this freedom for you to be able to express in a way that you may not feel you can do naturally or outwardly. And there are also a lot of people who aren't using their real names. Who aren't using the real locations that they're based. Especially on X, they're not posting photos of themselves. They're literally only trolling and commenting. And that is actually one way that people protect their identities.
So do I have to protect my identity for me to come out in my authentic self?
I think
Image.
it really depends on what you're doing, who you are, and your influence. And the reason I say that, I mean, I'm not an expert in human resources. I don't work for a corporate entity. But I do think that when you are working for a company, that company also does have an image and a brand. And if you're saying you're a representative of that company and now you've gone and you've said something so demeaning or derogatory about, let's say, a group of people, if there's an opportunity of backlash to the company, I can see why the company is like, oh, we have to protect ourselves, right? The same way that you would want to protect your brand or your personal brand, right? If somebody starts really trolling you, you're going to come after them. Like, no, I know who I am. I know what I said. This is why I said it. You're going to protect it. So I think some companies feel that their brand image has to be protected, and that's why they're doing all these things. Now, do I agree with the fact that they are policing? Because I think that's really the question, is like, is policing social media okay? I think that's a lot of work because everybody's using it and there's so many different social media channels and outlets. But it is happening, and we've seen universally, we've seen around the world how people have been fired from their jobs because they were caught on camera doing something that they didn't even post to their social media, but somebody at a party or nigga or something like that.
I've seen that.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, because I was there, I was just fired. Do I think it's right? No. But I also realize that, like, I don't fully understand why some corporations make the decisions that they make when they realize that their companies are full of individual people who have individual social lives outside of their professional lives. So if what I'm doing outside of the professional sphere is not impacting my professional work, I don't think you should be penalized. But I say that cautiously as well, because like in the US, there have been cases that we've seen that have reached national news of people who were, for example, extremely racist, but they're working at an organization that's helping refugees. That's clearly a conflict. You're not going to bring in the best support for this community when you have voiced messages of hate specifically against the same community you're serving. So for me, it's like, yeah, no, that obviously this was not a match, and this person is literally just taking your money and not doing their job because they're very vocal that they hate people that look like or represent or have this religion, yet they're working at your organization that is supposed to be helping those same people. How does that work? That's not going to work. So it's such a, I don't know, I feel...
I should just create a banner account. That's what they're saying.
Or a private account, which is what I tell a lot of people. Create your private account. The one you want to be most vocal on. For you, if it's Twitter, make it private. And then you know who you're following. You know who's following you. And nobody can come and see anything that you've posted unless you've made it public. That's one way to allow yourself to have your expression and know that only the people that you want to really see it are able to see it.
So, okay. That's be clear. Now, also, seeing as you've been working with communities and you extensively love society, how do you differentiate different cultures you've been into? Can you like break that down for me from like national? Also, you like American, right?
I am American.
Yeah, dope. So one, get that question because I don't want it to run away from. How do you like differentiate the cultures? What's your thoughts? What's like your opinion and perspective to the different cultures you've interacted with? Mm-hmm. But now, still on the same thing, do you feel like the American culture has greatly affected the world in a negative way? Yeah? Yeah.
Only in a negative way?
Let's talk about the negative way.
Okay, so how do I integrate with the places that I go to? That's the first question. And how do I accept culture? So maybe in two different ways. If I'm moving to a place, I really slow down to understand the culture. I ask a lot of questions. I do research on the food. I try to say things in local language. Like, I really get curious about where I am and how are people celebrated. I try to understand the holidays. I go and do cooking classes. Like, I try to connect with people in my community. When I say that, like the people around me, so I can learn how to prepare food, so I understand certain cultural traditions or things that are seen as taboo, so that as I'm moving around and operating in that cultural space, I'm not offending people, right? I'm not offending them when I use a particular hand to exchange something with them. I'm not offending them with a response of a simple yes or no. Like, and it varies everywhere you go in the world. So I get really curious. If I'm traveling and visiting a place just for a small amount of time, I do a lot of the same research. I always try to say, like, please and thank you and hi and goodbye in the local language of wherever I am. And I also always do a cooking class everywhere I go. So at least I can learn something tangible on that trip or on that experience. And I can also take it back to my family. I can take it back to my friends. And I feel like food is a great way to, like, share culture.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of some ways I do it. Also on the integration front, no matter where I am, I do understand that I'm American, and I do understand that a lot of Americans can move in this world with intense entitlement. And so I never tried to do that.
So my question treads from, you see, we consume a lot of, say, American music, right?
Yes.
I grew up listening to rap music, so most of
I
the
told you
people
I
I
could
listen
rap.
to Jay-Z, Wayne, and Yeezy, Kanye, Lupe Fiasco. So apart from people like
the new
Lupe
rappers.
Fiasco, that have been consistent with the message of hope and maybe encouragement, most of the other music is where we learn. I don't want to say learn, but is where we really pick up on our definition of cool, say, right? And that includes things like maybe abandoning our culture when it comes to the ladies in terms of dressing. They want to be more free because, you see, Americans are more free or something like that. It's how maybe you pick up on habits like drugs and how that is like cool and extensively, right? So when you listen to, and music is so deep that it lives with you and it teaches you and you're listening to it constantly, so it becomes a part of you. So then you go into the lyricism and what message they're trying to put out. Then you realize that almost all the top 100 say top 100 charts or Billboard songs will be, they focus so much around pussy, money and weed. So that is like literally sex,
Money
and drugs.
Yeah, so what's the question?
Well, what do you think about that?
I
In
think
terms of
that
that
sells.
culture to that.
I think it sells, right? Like, sex sells, the want for money or the hate of money or the love of money sells. And drugs essentially are this gateway of escapism, right? It's this tool, it's this thing that can be used that allows you to run away from your reality. And if we're tying it back to rap music, I mean, in no way, shape, or form, please nobody quote me. Like, I don't study music in that way. I'm not checking everyone's bars to see, like, what are they really meaning. As a consumer of music, of rap music, often rap is poetry.
Yeah.
And often in those lines of poetry, it's telling a story of pain.
That's
right?
so true.
And so if you're not consuming it from that perspective, you may only hear the loop, right? You may only hear the chorus, which is the hype part of the song. That's the part of the song that's meant to grab you. So most people can't actually sing along to a rap song, right? They only jump in on the chorus and they're just following the beat. They're following the beat.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't think everyone listens to the song to understand the pain, the story, the growth, the heartache, the discussion of exhaustion, racism, things that people feel that they're lacking. They only hear that, that chorus, that tagline, that hype line, and then they're like, yeah, I want to be like that, or I see more of that, I want to be like that. And I think that is where we run into trouble, because often rap really is telling a story of pain.
Okay, from your perspective, do you think the Western culture affects the African culture, seeing as you've coexisted in both cultures?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
It does.
All right, let's just jump away from the
I'm
culture
like,
a little bit.
good and bad, it does.
Yeah, good and bad, really. So yeah, what drew you to the role of being an intimacy coach?
Yeah, so realistically speaking, it's something that I would say I didn't know, but I was always fascinated with. So when I was younger and I was in like grade school, I was what we called a peer sexual educator. And a lot of that came because my mother and father were very open with my sisters and I. Not open in the sense of, yeah, you can go out and have sex with whoever you want. No. They were very open in the sense of like, oh, you want to have sex with someone? This is a ramification. This is an implication. This can happen to you. So know that if you choose to make that, as they would call it, adult decision, then you may have to deal with an STI. You may have to deal with pregnancy. You may have to deal with whatever, these different things, right? And so they really couched it around like, what are you going to choose? Are you going to choose to have an amazing future where you can decide when you want to have a family, when you can choose who you want to fall in love with, or are you going to choose a life of hardship? And look at all these people around you who made that choice for momentary pleasure, and look at the hardships they're going through. So you see it. So which one do you want? You want what we've created for you, which is like a lot of like luxury and plush and goodness, or do you want the hard stuff? And I think because we had those conversations, it took my mind and space to looking at sex very differently. There was no urgency for it. There was no desire for it in that way, right? It was more or less like their approach to it felt very empowering.
Yeah.
Because now I wasn't curious about having to be in it. I was more or less like, I can make the decisions I want to make around it. So started off as a sexual peer educator in school, went to college, did something very similar, and I found that people were always coming to me and asking questions around sex, how to protect themselves, birth control. And then as I got even older and friends started getting married or being in more serious relationships, questions started coming around how to make the relationship sustainable, successful, how to work through, challenges or arguments or ruptures in relationship. So I've always kind of been this like person that helped bring people together. And never thought anything of it. Literally, I would tell people, well, this is what my parents did. Like, this is what I've seen them do. This is the advice I heard them tell people. So I'm just sharing it. Yeah. And then in 2018, I went through a breakup, which was really bad, which I talk about in my podcast. Yeah. And at that time, I felt very devastated and I didn't know what to do. And so I started a business in Ghana called For the Love of Fufu. And the first event that I had was called Indulge and Play. And it was all around all things sexuality. And when I say sexuality, I don't mean sexual orientation. I literally mean your sexuality. When you get dressed in the morning and you put on your like perfume or cologne and you look in the mirror, that moment you say to yourself like, damn, I look good. And then you're ready to like exit into the world and you have this confidence. That's your sexuality, right? How are you celebrating yourself? How are you feeling good?
So is this why some people who say men can then feel like they're women?
That is different. But yes, technically that is their view of their sexuality, is a more feminine approach. Okay. Right? But so it is how you feel in your skin. Right? So, and I'm looking at it more from a confidence perspective, not from a gender perspective. Okay. So I'm not looking at how you identify with your gender, but just how do you feel good? Like, damn, I look good today. Like, everyone's going to notice me. Someone's going to compliment me.
Is there a world where you can wake up in the morning when you say, where you feel like, you feel like a man?
Good? Me?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Because I have come to terms with my femininity and the goddess that lives inside of me.
Yeah.
Right? To a perspective, because I do think no matter what, even if you go and you do like reflexology, right? They will always tell you in your feet, you have feminine energy and you have masculine energy in your feet. And that like exudes through your entire body. If you're just looking at yin yang type of principles, we all have feminine and masculine features. We're not talking about social constructs. We're not talking about gender roles. We're literally just talking about energy types. And so I operate professionally from a very masculine approach. I'm very dominant with the work I do. I'm very on top of the work I do. I can push it out. I can set my goals. Like I'm very focused and driven. That is considered like masculine energy of work. In relationships, I'm very feminine. I'm very soft. I'm very nurturing.
This is why you're still crying about your heartbreak.
Cried.
Okay.
The masculine has come. That thing is done and dusted, okay?
All right. That's joking.
So I think it's important to distinguish that like, yes, we both have these things. It's just that culturally, societally, we are too focused on gender roles that we stop actually leaning into the yin and yang, yin and yang of life and life's energy and dynamics.
Interesting. So how have your experiences in, say, Ghana and Uganda shaped your perspective and your take on relationships and life in general for now? At least I know for a fact that you said you don't like Ugandan food.
Did you just have to say that? Hi to all my Ugandan friends out there. You know, take what you want to take from what was just said, okay? Mark!
It's really a conversation. So, yeah, but maybe you've changed your mind on it. But really, yeah, how have the experiences in Uganda and Ghana shaped your perspective on life and relationships?
Okay, so let's start.
I'm asking this because from your conversation, you talked about Ghanaian men and what maybe not to expect and some bits of that on your podcast.
Yes.
So, yes, this is...
Okay, so now I get to talk from the Ugandan man perspective. Okay.
And in general, what have you seen? People, okay, most of our music is really full of love, so people hear about love and so much, right?
Yes. Your music here is very romantic.
Exactly, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
It's very romantic. It's very gentle. It's very like soft and kind and like how would I even say it? It's soft. It's kind. It's gentle. It's like a gentle dance around romance and play. And one thing I will say about men that I've noticed here is one thing I'm definitely walking away with from Uganda is how much men in Uganda love babies and children and how much they also are in their marriages.
Yeah.
Right? When I've met married Ugandan men, one of the first things they do is tell me something really beautiful about their wives. Right? And then they immediately start talking about the relationship they have with their children. I'm here helping a friend with a baby. Whenever I'm out, if that baby starts to cry, it's almost a man who comes to me first and says, do you need help with the baby? Can I hold the baby? Let me make her happy. And they're so happy and joyful.
Yeah.
And I'm just like in awe of that because you don't see that in many places around the world, right? In many places around the world, it's like, oh, baby, woman. She's crying. Take her.
That's it. Take to the mom.
And here it's like, no. Oh, let's change her diaper. Where's the bottle? Let's feed her. Are you the mom? Okay, breastfeed her for a while. It's okay, baby. It's okay, baby. And it's like, wow. So that has really touched my heart because family is so important to me.
Definitely, yeah.
So to be in a culture where men are literally celebrating their families is like, I'm in love. I truly love the representation of that I've seen here. So that's been really inspiring on the Ugandan side.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how do you define intimacy and how does it cut across both all the cultures you've been involved in?
So the way that I define intimacy is very simple. and it's intimacy. And this is why the podcast is also called Intimacy. Because the idea is, if you're being intimate, intimacy is not about sexual penetration. Intimacy is about you being able to be seen, you being able to be heard, understood, you being able to be a part of a very personal experience. That personal experience can include penetrative sex. It may not include any sex, but it still may be the most orgasmic thing you've ever had in your life. And so when I am traveling, how I see intimacy is, how am I seeing people come together? How am I seeing people be celebrated? How am I seeing people being given the permission to be their most authentic selves and to move and interact in the world as that? And for me, when I see that and I can see the embracing of it, the celebrations of it, when I hear the conversations around it, right? There's so much permission and allowing in that. It ends up being these like conduit spaces of love. Mm-hmm. And that is pure intimacy.
Okay, I see.
Mike is like, Erica, come back.
So from your perspective, what are like, seeing as you're an intimacy coach, what are like those ingredients someone needs to build strong relationships?
Oh, that's a really
and
big
sustainable
question.
relationships? Yeah, like what have you observed that is, and where do people really go wrong? Yeah, like I don't want you to work with data, right, or something, but I want you to like, yeah, exactly, from what you've observed. Is it that most people get into relationships when they're ignorant on how to love their partners? Like what can be made to make a relationship sustainable?
Yeah, so you asked about 6 questions in that one question.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to like summarize it. So to make a relationship sustainable, from what I've seen and strictly dealing with the heart, the first thing I would say is, remember that a relationship is one or more people coming together. Let's just say 2 people for the sake of this conversation, 2 people coming together. The most important thing is to remember that both of you are imperfect. You have, like, that's probably like the number one thing I would say, is that relationships are 2 imperfect people coming together.
Yeah.
And if you are able to honestly realize, register, acknowledge that the person in front of you is not here to make you complete. They are not here to fill all the holes and gaps that you have in life, and that they are imperfect. They may seem perfect, and that's okay. You can be completely and utterly in love, but they still have some imperfections. They still have some things that they're not going to do right. They have some ways that they may say things that may hurt you and that may not feel good. So first and foremost, remember that relationships are made of 2 imperfect people trying to walk in life together. The second thing is, we all have a past. We all have trauma that we've experienced. We all have been hurt by something, from either when we were 5 years old and our parents told us we couldn't have that toy that we wanted in the store, or we were 16 and experienced our first heartbreak. There is something that has happened along the way in our life that has left a wound. And often when we're moving around and interacting with the world, somebody's going to step on that wound, but they have no idea that we have those wounds inside of us. So if you're moving in relationship, know that you are bringing wounds into your relationship, and the person that you're looking to be in relationship with also has wounds that they're bringing into relationships. How do you navigate the wounds? How do you create a safety system, trust within each other, to know that you're not going to unintentionally step on these wounds, which is going to put distance between you and a partner? And the last thing I will say, because I can say so many things about this, but the last thing I will say is, every relationship is going to experience ruptures. Every relationship is going to experience challenges. Mm-hmm. At some point in a relationship, somebody's going to feel that they are not being heard or seen or respected or wanted or desired, or insert the word that makes sense for you in the relationship that you're currently in. That does not mean that the person across from you does not love you and does not want to be with you. It again means that there's a wound or something you have that they don't know how to speak to.
Yeah.
And so that leads to this third point, which is you have to develop a culture, or you have to develop the ability to work through ruptures and challenges as they happen. That doesn't mean immediately, though, because some people like to do things now. Oh my gosh, I just stepped on your foot. Are you okay? Tell me you're okay. No, show me your foot. Do I need to replace your shoe? Oh my gosh, I chipped your nail polish. Let's go get you a fresh pedicure. I'm so sorry. There are some people that are like that. Everything has to happen now. And there are some people, it's like, oh my gosh, I just stepped on your foot. They walk out the room. You don't see them for a week and you're like, oh, they stepped on my foot. But for them, they're like, oh my gosh, I stepped on their foot. What do I do now? How do I apologize? Okay, are they ever going to want to talk to me again? Man, I feel so bad about stepping on their foot. And after 3 hours, 3 weeks, 3 days, then they come back and say, hey, I'm really sorry I stepped on your foot. I really do hope your foot's okay. And that's it. So you also need to know, are you the one that is, gotta resolve it now, don't run away from me, let's get this done? Or are you the one that's like, you need time, you need to process? Know who you are, know who your partner is, and learn how to work through the disruptions, the challenges, the ruptures, the conflict as it happens at the pace at which you both need it.
Yeah. So currently, most of the challenges are also inflicted from like the type of societies we're living in, right? So modern day dating and maybe communication is weird. You probably can fail to text back your girlfriend, but then you send a tweet, so that would piss her off. Oh, he has the time to tweet, but he doesn't have the time to really communicate with me. So yes. From your perspective as a coach, how would you suggest we navigate the complexities of current day dating and communication? And do you also feel like communication is such an important factor, like people make it to be, or someone really has to be your soulmate? Like the connect, okay, maybe I'll ask that after. But how do you suggest people navigate the complexities they're facing in modern day dating? This includes the fact that there is social media involved, right? There's the internet of things now, and people are on the internet living facades, or maybe real lives, but it's a bit triggering. So you see your age mates are flying out to Dubai, but then you do not probably make the bucks to take your girlfriend to Dubai. And it might torture you as the guy who can't take your girlfriend to Dubai. Before it even tortures her, then it brings some tension in the relationship. So there's that type of thing. Yeah.
So that's again a different question, but let's run with that.
Yeah, but
so you have seen your mates take their spouses, girlfriends, whatever, to Dubai, and now you're sitting there and you're like, oh man, I can't do that. And like you just said, it starts to bring some division into your relationship. But guess what? Your girlfriend may have never had an expectation for you to do that, but because you feel like you are failing her, because you can't do what you see other people in your life doing, you start to actually put in the resistance in the relationship. She starts to respond to your distance. So you start kind of taking a step back because you're like, I'm not being the best I can. I'm not giving the experiences I want her to have. And she has no idea that you're fighting with this internally, but everything in you is taking a step back from her and your connection, right? Because you haven't spoken about the frustration with her. You haven't had a conversation. So you're operating from a space of something you really want to do for this person that you love. And they are totally blind that you're upset that you can't do it because you haven't communicated it. Now, let's digest that just a little bit. Essentially, what just happened in that example is comparison. And that can be the death of so many things, so many good things in our life, is because we're chasing someone else's dream. We're not actually doing the things that we want to do. Oh man, they just took their girlfriend or their wife to Dubai. I want to do that. I want to be able to do that. Da, 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 da. versus being like, wow, they're in Dubai with their loved one. That's so cool and so great. Maybe in 3 years, I'll go to Dubai with my loved one. And then now you're working towards it, and you and her are talking about it, and you're both getting excited for it to reach the goal. Because the thing when we compare our situation to someone else's, we don't know how they got to where they are. We don't know if that was a work trip. We don't know if maybe the in-laws paid for it. We don't know how that trip came to be, but we see it, right? And we also don't know if they enjoyed themselves. They may post photos of, oh, look at us at the Taj Mahal, whatever, but the whole time they were fighting. Or maybe they're there for medical purposes. But we don't know that. We only know what they post and what we see. So stop comparing your relationships, your reality, your desires to what you see other people doing out there on social media. Half the time, they're doing it for likes. They're not actually doing it because it was resonating true to them in their experience. So like, stand true behind what you want and like what feels good for you, and stay focused on that, and talk about those things with your partners. Hey, in 3 years, I think we should really try to go to Dubai on vacation. Maybe we can do it for your birthday. Your milestone birthday is coming up, or you'll be getting your PhD. Like, something's happening, and this feels like a really good way to celebrate that. And it doesn't even have to be around a celebration or a milestone. It can literally be like, let's just do this thing. And you do it, but you do it together. You work towards it together.
Yeah. So does that also answer the fact of how people maybe should navigate challenges? Is by doing things together?
No. No, not at all. Because challenges can range.
Yeah.
Right? A challenge can come from so many different places and so many different things. So you had also asked if communication was important in relationship and the frequency of it. And I'm going to bring that question back because I think that ties into how do you navigate challenges. Mm-hmm. And communication is imperative in relationships. But we also have to acknowledge, like I said earlier, you have those people that are now, who can be seen as the oversharers, or they can be seen as the people who are always asking for connection. They always want to be with you. They never want to leave your side. And then you have the other ones who are the analytical ones, or the thinkers, or the self-processors, who don't necessarily need to always be next to their partners, in the same room, always on the phone, right? And so one thing I will say that's really important for relationships is to understand what makes you anxious or what creates fear. Are you afraid that this person's going to leave you? Are you afraid that you're not enough in the relationship? Are you afraid that you're too much in the relationship? Honor those feelings, because the more you don't honor them, the more they run your relationship. Because when you fear something, you are actually heading down that road of fear. You're not heading down that road of joy and love and happiness, right? Mm-hmm. Because you fear it so much, you're being pulled towards the fear. You're not being pushed into like the amazingness that can happen. The other side of that is, where was I going? So there's the fear. Individuation. Even though you are in a relationship, you are still an individual. You still have to maintain your identity in that relationship. I know we hear all the time, the two become one. You do become one, but you're still two, right? So even for those who see this on video, when I bring my two hands together, they're still two hands. Yeah. They've created a line down the middle, but they're still two hands. And so whatever your hobbies are, whatever the things are that you enjoy, don't stop doing those things just because you're in a relationship. You have to maintain your sense of self and your sense of identity. Yeah. And when you're able to maintain that and be in a relationship, you're able to have more sustainable, loving relationships, and you're able to address challenges in a more connected way. Because now nobody feels threatened. Nobody feels like, well, I gave this up to fit into your life. And like now you're like telling me you don't want to be in a relationship with me anymore. You're telling me I'm too clingy, that I'm too this, I'm too that. And it's like, that's gutting and hard because they feel like, but I did it for you. Yeah. So don't do that. Maintain who you are. Maintain like your goals, your drive, your life, your passions. And there are some things that you do that your partner may not like smoking. If you're a smoker, maybe smoking helps relax you, but your partner's asthmatic and they really would prefer you not to smoke. Well, maybe that is something you can choose to give up, but you're choosing to give it up for your health. You're choosing to give it up for yourself, not necessarily just because this person doesn't like it. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you believe, and this is a little bit personal, so do you believe love should be first sight, or is the chase important?
Say that again.
When you meet someone, say, do you just feel that connection that, okay, I'm going to be with this someone, or do you see someone you like and then keep chasing them regardless until you probably get an open window and she gives you a chance, in this case, if you're like a guy?
Yeah, I think it goes both ways because I think they're kind of connected. If you are a guy, like you said, and you're chasing something that looks good to you, you're chasing something that you're like, no, I need this. I think there's some energy behind it that is pushing you to do that, right?
Yeah.
There's something that's drawing you to that. And, you know, I like to say that that's probably like the animalistic nature of you, right? Like you probably like to chase. Not every man likes to chase. Not every woman likes to be chased. Mm-hmm. But if you are in it for the chase and the thrill and to know that like, I saw something I knew I wanted, that I liked, I went after it and I conquered it. That matters for you in a relationship. And you need to probably be with somebody who can be accepting of being chased and giving you the thrill of the chase. Because if you chase someone and the moment you get to them, they turn around and say, okay, here I am, I guarantee that relationship is not going to last. Because you're going to be like, oh, that was too easy.
So does it have to be so hard? Because say, look, I probably chased around someone, right?
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about you. Let's make this personal.
Yeah, and they've given me that energy back until, so the last conversation we had with this person was like, okay, I'm going to let's try and see how this goes.
And
right?
now where are you?
Like, then from nowhere, she's like, no, I am seeing someone else.
Oh.
Yeah. And so but I still feel like I can still chase them, right? But then I feel like my ego is too big for that.
Is your ego too big for that? Is your ego too bruised for that? Because you chased her. How do you differentiate that? Okay. You chased her, and right when you thought you caught her, she said, actually, this one's got my attention, not you. And she dropped you. Yeah. And so are you feeling like, well, damn, what didn't I do? Like, what did he do better than me?
Exactly. Yeah. I can't escape those thoughts. But then I really genuinely feel this is someone I like. So what do you do in such a position?
What do you do in such a position?
Say, imagine like, say maybe I've stalked them on their socials and I know for a fact that they're not really so much into that person anymore, probably.
You know for a fact, huh?
Not like, well, but I can tell, right? I can really do the same.
Yeah. You can tell.
So, what do you do in such a situation?
Let's break this down for you. Like, let's keep it real personal, right? Yeah. You chase this person. They were like, nah, not you, but him. Yeah. And you still want to chase this person.
Because I think about them a lot.
Right. Okay. So let's now pick it up from there. What is driving your desire?
They're really, maybe they're a good person. But to my standard of good, they're reserved. I'm attracted to them. All that. Yeah.
And what do they ignite inside of you?
Passion, love, family. Like, I want all that with this person.
Yeah. So that sounds like acceptance.
How do you mean?
Like, you feel with them, they'll accept all of you.
Yeah, I've also really opened up to them like I've not done before with anyone. So it hurts my feelings that I can just let them go, yet I have given them so much of me, right? And they've been there listening, trying to like catch up. They've stood with me throughout it. Then when that happened, it was really, really So I want to kill the conversations, right? I want to like block them from my life, but then I think about them a lot.
So let's slow down for a second because there's a lot that's happening there. I hear a lot of passion and desire, but then I can feel a lot of hurt and grief.
Yeah, but I mean, they have chosen someone else.
Yeah, and that sucks.
And yeah, exactly. So it will bring the grief.
Yeah. And that experience, right? They've chosen someone else. How does that impact you? Like,
Because
what comes
I
up
want
for you? Before you give me the story, I want to hear the feeling.
So the feeling is one, I genuinely like this person, right? So I want to respect their choices. Like if they've chosen better for themselves, then I want to force myself to be happy for them from wherever I am. Like for the fact that, you know what, again, I cannot just manipulate them into a relationship with me. I want it to be as straight and clean because this is something I want for life if it's to happen.
Yeah.
So I feel terrible. And I've actually told them that, you know what, so we've had like a follow-up conversation after that. And like, hey, no, you ghosted me. So I'm like, because you chose someone else. So I've had to deal with feeling that type of anger. And
Anger.
yeah. I've dealt with that. I feel jealous about it. That why didn't you choose me? So and they're like, okay, oh my god, I'm so sorry. And it ended there. Then there was nothing else to talk about. So I feel like maybe should I still go back and talk to this person? But I've since then ignored them. Right? I just want them to just enjoy their life and see how I deal with my own feelings and maybe get over it. But it has taken forever. It's taken forever.
So when I hear you say I've ignored it, I hear you say I've ignored it, but I feel in your other words, it's like, but I'm waiting for them to see me. I'm waiting for them to walk through the door. I'm waiting for them to value what I brought.
That's so true. Yeah.
Yeah, so you haven't really left them.
So what should I do?
What should you do?
Yeah, from like your perspective, from like your observation of things, what's the best thing to do in that?
Yeah, well, I want to first go back a little bit to the feelings part, right? Because you did end up saying like you feel angry, you feel jealous, you feel hurt, and all of that.
But I feel extremely hurt.
Yeah, and what in it, like, let's drill down on that hurt, right? Like, what hurts? Not just she chose somebody else, but is it like I'm not enough? Is it like what is that real hurt?
So I don't know where I went wrong and why she didn't choose me.
It's like you weren't giving enough, or did you give too much? Like you're unsure.
So there's that. I feel like I gave too much.
You do?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that scared her?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
In terms of like too much, like it really opened up probably about my past relationships. So I had, I don't want to call it popular, but that's what people knew me for, like I was coupling with my girl and stuff. So when we broke up, this was the person I like could run to, only person maybe I probably told what the whole thing. I wrote like a whole book, right? To apologize to like a girl. Then this is the person I shared this book with after some time. Like, oh, look, this is what I've been going through. This is maybe how I've handled my stuff. Like, and I've kept, because I feel like in my previous relationships, there was a lot of keeping things so much to myself and maybe lying. So I was like, maybe let me do the opposite of everything I've done wrong in these relationships with this person. Yeah. But then somehow they didn't choose me. I don't know. Like you said, I kind of feel like maybe I have to do something, but then I don't want to be a desperate person.
So let's just pause and acknowledge what's happening with, like, I did something different. I did something extremely vulnerable and different, and I thought I was doing the right thing, but I wasn't chosen. Can we just acknowledge how shitty that feels? Yeah. Right?
Extremely shitty.
Yeah. Right? It's like gutting. Are you getting emotional?
No, I really want to talk about this and see if I can get my mind to a fair point, right? So right now, I I do everything in my power to like ignore them. But that's a lie because I'll keep up on their socials.
Exactly, because you used the word stalking earlier, but I want to just slow you down for a second, because I think that we are so conditioned not to feel our real feelings. And I just want to give you an opportunity to feel how shitty this feels. Right? Like, just feel it. Because I'm feeling it. I'm feeling like I feel.
I genuinely feel it.
Yeah, how are you feeling it in your body? Like, where is it showing up for you? Like
in the heart.
In your heart. And how is it feeling? Pressure?
Like now, yeah. And the pain also comes. And this feeling is something I experience. So one of the other things I really hate is the fact that I think about this person. All the time. Even when I don't want to think about it. Yeah. If the moment I'm in a space alone, right? So the nights before I really go to sleep in my bed, I'll randomly maybe call out their name. Yeah.
As if she's there.
As if I want to have a conversation with her. Like as if we are initiating conversation. So that, and I hate it now. I'm like, why really? Like, what is it that I cannot move on? Why do I expect that there's going to be something to happen, right?
Yeah.
That.
So you said that with her, you really opened up. You really shared a different side of yourself. You really gave yourself permission to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask a question. I hope, let's just go with it to see, where we go with it. But I'm just curious, in your past, childhood, other loving experiences, did you feel that there wasn't room for your emotions?
That's a very, very interesting observation.
Yeah.
First, ask the question again.
Let's stick with childhood. In your childhood, did you feel like there wasn't room for your emotions?
Somehow. Yeah. I didn't grow up with my mom.
Yeah.
That. Yeah. I feel like it had some significant effect on me. The emotions, my dad grew up from Japan. He had to work and make sure I get a better life. So, yeah. A big chunk of that was in bits of complaining. I don't have someone to really understand me. That.
Yeah, so it almost felt like with your dad, it was more or less like, oh, let me toughen up, let me show this, because
you had to do it because that's what he demanded for. Like to him, I paid his school fees, fucking read books and that.
Yeah, and he gave you the best part of him. He probably knew how to.
Exactly.
But it shut down that sweet, emotional, vulnerable little boy side of you.
I feel like I'm very emotional though, because the people I love them extensively. I'm more like him, like my dad. Like that's all I know how to just love my woman. So I feel like that's also another wrong thing, because if I was like my peers and I could just go in a club and get one night stands, I would probably not be thinking about them. There would be a different person in my space, but that is not the person I am.
Yeah. So there's two expressions happening though, right? Like you said, your father loved unconditionally, but in a way that didn't give space for all of the vulnerability or all of the emotions. But it doesn't mean you didn't feel his
that
love.
Is, I could feel it. I could also see in how he expresses it. So he's like a church person. Gives to the church, also has one woman, not like any other uncle. Like you'd see it. He's committed to the woman. He has the principles of, regardless, even if she's wrong, I'll probably just keep quiet, walk away. Maybe we'll sort this in the bedroom.
Yes.
This is money. He is the whole time. Up to today, this is what you see.
Yes.
So that, I admire that.
Yes.
But when it comes to like how he loves me, I acknowledge the fact that he was a little bit lacking. Like he would not sit down and have conversations. He's not that type of person. You'd not tell him how you feel, and it mattered. It never mattered to him. What mattered to him was what he has to do for you to get through life, and that was something.
Yeah. And so I want us to just like spend a little bit of time there. Okay?
Okay.
You okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. And what I actually would love to do with you right now is create an opportunity for you to just go and spend some time with how old do you remember yourself being?
So the most I remember is maybe in my secondary, senior two. I can
So like what is that, like 13?
like 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would love to create an opportunity where you can actually like go back and spend some time with your 15-year-old self, or your 6-year-old self may come up, whoever they are, but this child of you may come up. And I'm not going to prescribe right now what may happen because I don't want you to have a biased experience. But if you're open to it and to this audience, I would love to just walk you through an experience so we can see like what else is there.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I'm really open to it.
Okay. All right. So first, before we even start, I just want to invite you to take a deep breath. You can breathe with me.
All right.
Yeah.
Feel lighter.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. And I want to encourage you to just keep breathing, right? And remember that it's just you and I who are here and all this other equipment and things, but the reality is it's just you and me in this space. So I want to invite you to just like continue breathing. Feel free to close your eyes, get comfortable. And as you're breathing in and out, I want you to breathe at a pace that feels good and most comfortable for you. And as you're taking in those breaths, I want you to start feeling what feeling relaxed feels like in your body. Yeah? And feel the seat underneath you. Feel your feet on the floor. And just breathe, knowing that you're safe. Knowing where you are, knowing I'm right here with you. And as you're just breathing and taking in your body and how you feel, I want you to like just step into a space where you can almost see all of your memories. And I want you to allow yourself to like roll through that Rolodex of memories, of childhood memories. And when you're ready, I want you just to pick one. Not one that's too heavy, not one that's too light, but just pick the one that feels good for right now. And once you've like picked that memory, you can just like wave at me. You just like put your hand in the air. Okay, we have a memory.
It's quite weird that does.
Yeah, and we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Just stay with that memory. Stay with that memory. Yeah, you have it. And so now I want you to walk into the memory. You are right there in it, and I want you to slowly take it in. Maybe you hear the sounds happening around you. If you're in a room, maybe you can see the floor or take note of the color of the paper around you. If you're outside, you feel the sun or the breeze. And just start to recognize and register where you are. And really allow yourself to just settle into that place, settle into the memory. And once you've started to take in the smells and you're feeling it, you're really feeling this memory, I want you to look around for your little self. Where is little Mark?
You want me to answer?
yeah, I want you to tell me where he is and tell me a little bit about where you are, what's happening in this memory, and then I'll come back in. I want you to just stay in it. But yeah, tell me.
So I'm in my bedroom,
Okay.
and there's a girl.
Uh-huh.
So she had come home to see me.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in the bedroom, like that exact memory.
Okay.
It's
And
there.
so where's little Mark?
I am on the bed.
You're sitting on the bed.
I am lying on the bed.
You're lying.
And she's standing
on
up.
the bed. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I want you, Big Mark, to just like take in little Mark lying on that bed. I just want you to just totally take him in. And I want him to also take note of your presence. And now that you've both connected, I want you to go over to little Mark on that bed. And I want you to just have a conversation. Like, is there anything that little Mark wants to say to you?
He can't talk.
He can talk?
He can't.
He can't
But
talk?
he's there and I'm there. It's interesting.
Okay, he can't talk. Is he telling you anything with his body? Can you pick up on
Yes.
anything with his body? Yeah, what's he saying?
The hand. He's pulling me the hand.
He's pulling your hand, so
Yeah.
he's pulling you closer.
Yeah.
Okay, but he can't talk.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And so you are there with him. He's pulling your hand. And I want you to just let little Mark know whatever it is you feel he needs to know in this moment. And you don't have to say it to me right now. I want you to share it with him first. Right? And as you're sharing that, I want you to start to notice how he's receiving what Big Mark is saying to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to invite you to like really feel this connection with little Mark. And I want you to give little Mark whatever you know he needs in this moment. Because you as Big Mark can bring in something so different. And just see, is there anything else that he needs or wants from you right now? And if it is, I want you to give it to him. If it's a hug.
So it's a hug.
It's a hug.
Constant pull back. It's interesting.
He's pulling you in.
So, and we're both looking at the girl because she's standing somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So look at her. Lean into that hug. Give him that hug.
Little me was so scared, right?
Uh-huh.
It's interesting.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Wait, close your eyes. I want to take you back in just for a little bit. Yeah, I want you to feel how scared little Mark is. And how you, Big Mark, are right there, right on time. And how you can speak to his confidence. You can speak to his fears. And you can let him know, I'm here for you. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be scared. Yeah. And once you're connected and he's received what he needs, if it's another hug, a high five, some words of encouragement, if he needs to tell you anything, just allow for it. And now I want you, Big Mark, to slowly get up, knowing that you've left little Mark with enough love and encouragement or whatever it is he needed, that hug. And I want you to just slowly leave the room. Yeah.
This is really good. Thank you. It's a really good practice. Really, really.
Tell me
really.
what's going on.
So, there's me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm around, I think, as in S3. So, we're in holidays.
Mm-hmm.
And this girl comes over to our home. So, this is another person, right? From back then, from high school. And so when they're coming home, our maid calls our dad and locks us in the room. So I've been in that room the whole time.
Mm.
But at some point, it also played where we went and our dad was on the door knocking. So both of us now stood up with my younger self. So my younger self was talking to my dad, and I'm just there watching. It's interesting how that played out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's what happened. So my dad was angry that I had brought a girl home, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So he was complaining in that time. So right after my dad disappears, me and Mark go back to the bed. So I'm trying to comfort him and I'm like, it's going to be cool. He's so scared. And I know it's okay. It's going to be cool. It's still your dad.
Yeah.
That's what exactly happened
Yeah.
in that moment.
And he needed a hug from you.
Yes. So he pulled me, so I hugged him. In that time, I'm like, it's going to be okay. I'm hugging him.
Yeah.
And he's strong. So after we look at the girl, then we just keep hugging.
Yeah.
And we spend some time on the bed. It's just interesting how we ignore the girl in the picture.
Yeah, she's not important. Did he cry?
No, he just pulled me with a lot of...
You could feel it.
Yeah, you could feel it. And then I could feel the energy that's also there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want you to remember this moment.
Yeah. It's even recorded, so I can just replay it.
True. But
nice.
I want you to remember the feeling of it. Because little Mark lives inside of you. He's never left you. And there are times where that fear is going to come to the top. And when you feel that fear, that's little Mark begging for your hand, begging for that hug. He's scared. He is so afraid. And I want you to remember what it felt like to be right there to comfort him. And to say, hey, I got you. Everything's going to be okay. You're okay. We are okay. Right? Little Mark is always with you. Yeah. And you get to always now be there for him in those moments when he's afraid. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I like this. It's interesting that I'm getting it for free, but yeah, I like it.
Let's just take a breath before we move on. Now, before we jump into the next question.
I'm really okay with exploring this extensively. Yeah.
Great. I want to ask you, in anything that you've shared with me about this girl, right? Do you feel little Mark in it at all?
This new one? This one?
Yeah, do you feel that same fear? Do you still feel that like scaredness, afraidness?
Yes, and it also kind of, now that you point me to the little me, kind of comes back, and sometimes we've met, there's that reservation, and I feel like it's a setback, right?
It's not a setback.
There's always that reservation of, okay, maybe take the lead. I like you so much, I don't want you to go wrong. I'll just go your way.
Yeah, because you're afraid that they won't want you. You're afraid that you may anger them. You're afraid that they may be disappointed in you, like your father was disappointed in that moment. Right? How could you bring a girl home? And that, because you love so intensely, you don't want to disappoint. You don't want to feel more than what someone can handle. You just want them to experience your love. Right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is beautiful. There's nothing wrong with it.
So what do I do about it? Because that's almost entirely very true. Like, the only thing I want from this person is for them to let me love them.
Yeah. And what I want for you is to feel little Mark coming to the top of that want. Because that's little Mark actually saying, hold my hand. Don't leave me. You, Mark, big Mark.
Let's see. So how do I? Okay, I am lost there with how I come to rescue myself in this case, where I feel a bit very desperate. Maybe, yeah.
It's the same feeling, right? Of disappointing someone, of having not done something right.
That's right.
And this person that I love, oh gosh, they're upset, they're walking away, or they've left me. But I want to make it right. I want to make it right. I want to make it right. Right?
So, I feel like there's even a chance for me to make it right, and I've come to terms with that somehow. But then I just can't stop thinking about them sometimes. Most times. Sometimes it's a lie. Most times I will tell you. Also, I've just up for this person for about 6 years. It's crazy, right?
Well,
Like, even when I was in a really solid relationship, they were there somehow. Like, there would be someone you'd still crush on, maybe see their IGs and just keep it at that. So maybe when I get out of a relationship, I'm like, maybe now this is my time. And I tell them exactly that. That, do you know that? Yeah, you definitely know. I've probably been hollering at you sometimes and stuff, asking you for dates and whatnot. So it's still like that. So now I feel like it's not right.
what I want to invite you to do is acknowledge your real feelings in it. Right? Acknowledge the fear of the loss. Acknowledge the pain of the disappointment. And remind little Mark, because that's just little Mark, showing up in what is love for someone else. That's maybe existing in a different way, being reciprocated in a different way. But I want you to acknowledge, like, hey, this didn't work out for us, but we're okay. We're okay. I got you.
I feel that now that you say it. Like, I genuinely feel that I'm okay. Like, really. I feel myself connecting with Mark, and I'm like, we're okay.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
Means you get to choose how you get to move. And what I really want you to feel or to know is that with this person particularly, who you're having this attachment to, I want you to explore inside if the attachment is to them or if the attachment is to a feeling they invoke inside of you. And if it's to a feeling, is it linked to a feeling of something that you didn't have or something that you've always wanted? And I would almost say that if it is the latter, if it is those things, little Mark is laying on that bed, pulling for your hand. Because oftentimes, when we get something in relationship that we've never experienced, for me, it's to feel seen. If I feel really seen in relationship, and then you break up with me, my mind is going crazy because you've given me something I've never had, that I've always wanted, and you've allowed me to experience how good it is to know that that need can be met, and that I'm not too much, I'm not asking for too much, that need of being seen matters to you. And then when you leave, it's shattering because it's like, am I ever going to get that again? Is anybody ever going to give me that space? Is anybody ever going to just hold me and hear me and let me be all the varieties of Erica that I am? And like you, I chase because it felt so good to finally have that desire met. But they can't give it to me anymore. And that feels hard because I had it.
Yeah.
I know what it feels like now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my hope is that you'll feel that again. You'll find it again. with someone who can give it to you because they want to.
That's my prayer every day. So again, because I want my feelings to be as fair as possible, I just don't want it to happen with this person, because I feel like for them, they have never been in that position, right? Where it's been more like of a stretch. Just text back that getting appointments, it takes some time for them. But also they're really a reserved person. I try to understand who they are. They've grown up with a single mom, so they've not seen, they struggle with relationships generally with their life also. So I want to understand the person and understand myself. So I get to that point where I'm like, okay, I don't really want it for it to happen because I want it. I just wished you are that person that could reciprocate the same energy back.
Yeah. Who can keep feeling into that with you because it feels so easy for you. Right?
Yeah.
But we can't force anyone.
Exactly. And I understand the fact that I can't force them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there's some disappointment there. There's intense disappointment there. You had something that felt good and right and what you needed, and then I chose someone else. It's disappointing. It's hurtful. It's hard. It invokes a lot of fear.
Yeah.
And yeah, now you get the choice, right? I'm always going to be on the side of intimacy. I'm always going to be on the side of us as human beings being able to have what we desire the most. And sometimes that means we have to conquer what we fear the most. What just came up for you?
Fear of like being disappointed again. But I feel like they've disappointed me enough that I don't want to feel that again from them.
Yeah, and how do you feel? Do you feel you've disappointed yourself?
Myself?
By chasing them?
Not so much. Like, I feel like I can still chase them and see how it goes, but then I don't want to disappoint myself again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Polarizing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to act insane, right? Just do over the same thing.
Well, let's dissect that a little bit.
I mean, this is someone who... So my birthday is in July, right?
Yeah.
And so we linked up mostly in July. This is when she tells me about, I think it was after we link up, but she seems very, very unbothered with me. Like I have to initiate conversation, all that. Yeah, so it's depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds like you just may need to develop some boundaries on how you will and will not engage in that relationship with that person moving forward.
Yeah, I've set my boundaries. My boundaries are actually... So I stopped communication with them, right? Like when I talk to them now, they'll reply. They'll be like, oh, that's good. I'm here to support you. They probably even like my podcast. Like I'll see it. Sometimes they give feedback maybe to the guest. But I can tell maybe they're trying to communicate to both of us. In that way, like, oh, I really like the podcast, I'm going to watch this. Like, I get that. The business alone, they would support it, like, in that way. But then, I feel like I don't want that anymore. I want to, like, erase them, right? So I want to, like, block them on the socials. I've been trying to get my mind on it. Say, 31st December. So I don't want to get...
This feels hard for you.
In 2024... with this kind of thing going on. So I just want to make up my mind and just erase them from my life and move on, like try and do that. Yeah,
this feels really hard for you.
It
the
is.
fact that you're saying the 31st instead of today, right now.
It is really hard.
Block.
No.
It's hard for you.
Because once I do it now, I'll probably in a week, I'll unblock them and text them.
Boundaries, baby.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. It's not easy. If you were a client of mine, there are a number of things that we would work through, which we don't have the time to do today. I think.
And you're leaving.
And well, 80% of my clients, well, right now because I'm here in Uganda, 100% of my clients are virtual.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
When I'm not here, when I'm in the US or when I'm in Ghana, at least 80% of my clients are virtual. And I only see people in person where I am, where I'm currently located, which obviously I can only be in that place. So, yes, I work with people online all the time. My business is a virtual coaching business. So if you feel you need more coaching, Mark,
Yeah, I'll
you know,
subscribe.
we can figure that out.
Definitely.
But that aside, I think what's most important right now for this conversation is the fact that you were able to access Little Mark.
Yeah,
And you're able
something
to hold
very
on
new
to
to me, and
that.
that was beautiful. I thank you for that so much.
Yeah.
I'll probably just use the same practice to now go back.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll probably land on a different memory, a different need. And there may be times where he wants to do something with you. Maybe go and explore somewhere or to show you something, or he's really excited or dancing or whatever. And he has a message for you. It may not always be you having to do something for him or have a message for him. It could be reversed as well. So just allow your mind to be open to that possibility of whatever comes up. Yeah.
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 That's pretty dope. Thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome.
Okay, let's try and look into these other questions. How has travel impacted your understanding of love, intimacy, and human connection?
So, what I've learned through my travels is that we're all human and that love is such an interpersonal thing. Like it's inside of us. Love can make you go crazy, it can make you go wild, it can make you do things you thought you would have never done. It's exciting, it's passionate, it's slow, it's a dance. These are feelings and emotions that everybody around the world feels when they are embracing love, right? And it's almost like this, it's almost like its own language, because I don't have to speak the same language as you to see, when you look into the eyes of another person, the tenderness, the care, and the love that you have for them. I can see it in your body language. I can see it in how you're moving around them, how you're being there, protecting them, you know, like you're just there. And so, yeah, with my travels, it's like I get to experience different gestures of love, different flavors of it, but the undertones are like very much the same around the world. Yeah.
That's interesting. And this is also from your clients, when you interact with them and they're from different parts, you realize they're literally the same, dealing with the same issues, right?
Dealing with the same issues. It may have shown up from for different reasons, because of different things in your culture or different traditions, or, you know, if you are of religion, different things that are taught in your religion, but it's literally the same things. Like we are truly the same in so many ways, especially when it comes to love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, on your podcast, you extensively gave some tips on how people should connect with Ghanaian people and men at large. So what are your tips for connecting with different cultures and building meaningful relationships while traveling?
So if you're traveling and it's short term, right? But you are maybe just like looking to have a different experience, or you're open to being receptive to meeting someone or dating, I would just say like know what you're getting into, because you also don't want to be taken advantage of, right? Like it's very obvious that you're not from a place and you may not be familiar with things. If you're traveling again and it's short term, be open to the experience. Have fun. Don't necessarily run into the commitment. I think that would be my warning, is don't run into the commitment, but allow yourself to experience what the gestures feel like, how the dating scene feels. Like allow yourself to have those experiences. Why not? But don't get so immersed in it that you lose sight of the fact that like you're there just for a sliver of time. And if you feel like, no, Erica, you're wrong, when I went on that trip to Italy, I really connected with this person. Our energies were connected. We are one. This is exactly what love is. If that is you, then I would say give it time. Allow time to tell you if what you felt and experienced is real, right? Because it's so easy to be swept off your feet when you're somewhere else and you don't understand the culture and you haven't interacted with a lot of people from there. It can feel really exciting that somebody's bringing you into the entirety of the culture, into their lives, introducing you to family and friends, making you feel seen, making you feel heard, making you feel understood, protecting you from things as well, right? That can feel so like, oh my gosh, like, yes, they wanted me the same way I wanted them. Look at all these things they did. And if you get into that mindset, then you may lose sight of the other practicalities of what is existing and the things that you do or don't know about this person because you only had an experience, a singular experience. So enjoy it, live, explore, admire, but also realize that this is like a short interaction. And if you think it's real, if you think there's something more, just give it time. Time reveals all. I promise you, time will reveal all. It will be on your side and it will let you know, like, if this is what you think it really is.
Yeah. So also, so again, I recall from the podcast, from the Intimacy podcast.
Intimacy.
You talked on how maybe different people love and perceive people differently. So in this specific example, you're referring to once the person you are dating realized you're a Black American, then they wanted to treat you in what they understand Black American women love to be treated. So how can we overcome culture and personal barriers to experience deeper intimacy with people? Mostly, really that culture.
Yeah, if you want to hear more about that story, you're going to have to listen to the podcast.
Definitely.
But it's interesting that you bring that up because having experienced that, yes, I have one view and identity of it. But I was speaking with your colleague as we were rewatching that specific scene, and he mentioned how when we're in different cultures, we actually think that we learn how to interact with that culture differently. And he said to me, Erica, I noticed that on the podcast, when you're talking about Ghanaian experiences or speaking to a Ghanaian friend who has said something to you, you have a Ghanaian accent. When you're talking about your life in America and your family, you have an American accent. And he goes, so in that story, the one you're talking about, you're sharing how the moment this person found out that no, you're not Ghanaian American, that you're African American, they changed how they spoke to you. They changed how they thought you would identify with them.
Yeah.
And he challenged me by saying, but are you not doing the same thing because you want to feel understood? And I really had to sit with that because if you listen to the podcast, you'll hear that the impact of what happened in that experience was jarring. It made me not feel seen. It made me not feel loved. The language that was used was not uplifting.
Yeah.
It wasn't positive. But having had that conversation today, now I'm like, wow, that person was just relating badly, but relating. And the basis of their relation was informed by media and music.
See? Yeah.
Exactly. But it landed so harshly and wrongly on me, the individual. So to go back to the question, I would say, like, if you are in a different environment and you do want to relate and you want to do it in a way that feels right for that culture or those people in that time, then I would say, like, if you have other friends there, ask, like, okay, how can I do this? How can I say this? Like, who's someone you can really trust that can, like, help you navigate that? And or be yourself. Don't try to be the culture of that person, right? And allow who you are from wherever you come from to shine through in that relationship. Because that's what I thought I had with that guy. I thought that I was allowed to be African American Erica, and he was allowed to be Ashanti Ghanaian man, and that we were coexisting really beautifully. But the moment he thought he had to be African American to connect with Erica African American was when the whole connection was lost.
Yeah.
I just wanted him to be who he was, and I thought he accepted me for who I was. And so when he wasn't trying to put on a persona, it worked. The moment that persona came in, it was off.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the healthy and effective ways to communicate sexual desires and needs?
Oh, we can do 3 hours on that alone. The first thing is we got to be real honest. Most people don't even know what they want. Most people don't know what their sexual desires are, right? Like, there are a lot of people who are like, oh, I just want to give to the other person. Men and women. Let's be corrected. I have many male friends who have told me I am only fixated on female pleasure. And I'm like, what? I mean, that's a beautiful thing, don't get me wrong. But like, there's nothing that you want. There's nothing that you desire.
Yeah.
And it's because at some point when they were younger and entering into sexual experiences, somebody told them they weren't good at something. And so then they made it their mission to become good at this thing, and they lost sight of what pleasure was for them. And so it's okay if you don't know what you want. It's okay if you don't know what turns you on. But start exploring. Is it sound? Is it words? Is it colors? Is it energy? Like, what is it? And so for my clients that work with me, we do something called like core desire exploration. And I do something where I talk about like the 3 dimensions of sex and how to achieve your hottest sexual movie, right? Your core desires are the things that turn you on. They're the feelings that you need to have in order to have the most orgasmic experiences. Why? Because when someone invokes a feeling that I need, it allows me to get out of my head. It allows me to be more relaxed in my body. And when I'm out of my head and I'm more relaxed, the only thing that will be expressing in my body is sensation. And that sensation is going to lead to orgasm. But if I don't know how to tell you what I need to feel, and I'm not saying I want to feel more pressure, less pressure, harder, softer. No, I want to feel seen. I want to feel known. I want to feel worshipped. I want to feel berated.
What does that mean?
Berated? I want it like belittled, talked down to, right? Mm-hmm. I want you to what's the word that they also use? If you want to be like yelled at, right? I want to feel dominant or submissive. I want to feel galactic. I want to feel like a small molecule in the universe moving around, going through walls. Right? There are so many feelings. There are thousands of feelings that people want. But if you don't know what you want to feel, then you can't create the roadmap to creating that intense relaxation for you to reach orgasm. So it's important to know how you want to feel, how you want to feel. It's then important to understand what you need to do to get to that feeling. Mm-hmm. So if I want to feel cared for, maybe, Mark, how you can show me you care for me is that you take me on a really romantic date and we go up to a rooftop and we're there for sundowners and I get to experience this really beautiful sunset and it's just you and me, like you've crafted it out where it's just like the two of us in the sunset and it just feels really beautiful, and it starts to get a little cold, and then you give me a blanket so I feel warm, and you keep checking on me like, do you need anything else, Erica? Did you eat enough? Is there anything else you want? And then you come closer, and you just maybe just like you're cuddled up with me, your hand is resting on my thigh, and we're just in that moment together, and then you give me this gentle kiss. That may make me
like so much.
but that may make me feel cared for.
Yeah. I hear you. I probably like the same exact things.
Oh,
I agree.
okay. So if that makes me feel cared for, you have now full access to my body, right? You have literally unlocked all the
pause, like everything
is open. And I'm completely receptive to whatever you bring, because you made me feel so cared for. And you continue that care through our sexual experience. You continue the gentleness, you continue the check-ins, like, okay, Erica, like, I really want to take you in now. Are you ready for that? And you let me say yes, right? That may, for me, still feel like you are caring for every element of my body and my experience, right? Now, for people who are watching, that is what I've explained there is not the only feeling or the only roadmap to achieving that feeling. That may be it for one person, right? Somebody else may want to feel devoured. They may want to feel ravished, right? So they're like, I'm not trying to see no sunset. I'm not trying to have a blanket wrapped around me. I don't want you checking and, oh, you want to take me in? Like, oh, that's so romantic. I don't need that. They may be like, when you see me, rip my clothes off of me, push me down to the ground, and take me. That may be the feeling and the roadmap for them.
Yeah.
So we're all different. Mm-hmm. But the moment you're able to express what you need to feel in the roadmap, and remember that roadmap will change. You'll have many, 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 many ways of how it can be expressed or how it can be experienced. But you talk about it. And a lot of people are shy to talk about it. One, because like I said already, they don't know. And or two, they feel like what they want won't be well received.
Okay.
Right? So if you like to be tied up or blindfolded.
Then do you feel like maybe also porn sells us the wrong impression about what sex should be like? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have the wrong idea and perceptions of what sex should be like, because media often shows us this really romantic picture and idea, the roses, the champagne, the boat rides in Italy, right? It's this like idea, oh, it has to look like this. And that is not what a lot of people want. And music in Uganda, it's very gentle, it's very romantic, right? But some people... We
lost one of our legends, Moses Radio. Radio and Weasel, popular. You probably heard a song from them. Okay, the counterpart is still alive, but he's literally one of the best vocalists in Africa. He used to write for also Wizkid.
Wow.
But his music was very touching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry for that loss.
Yeah, big loss for the country, big loss for Africa.
Yikes.
So anyway, following up, like how can we then create, from your perspective, create safe and supportive spaces, right? For exploring our sexuality and sensuality. This thing is not going.
Oh, I love sensuality. Okay, so how do you explore those spaces, or how do you create them? I think you just have to be intentional, and you have to do it. You can create it with friends. You can create it with your family members. You have 2 brothers, right? And so you start opening up that conversation with your brothers, and you have it enough where everyone knows that their vulnerability and their real questions around things aren't going to be laughed at, aren't going to be judged. They're not going to feel shame. But like, no, we can actually really talk about this stuff. And or you get help. You get a facilitator there who knows how to talk about these things, who knows how to take away the shame and the judgment of things that may come up, right? Like, you may have a friend who feels like every time I get excited, I ejaculate faster than I want to, and I don't know how to stop that. That is really shaming to say in a circle of friends, of men who think that like nobody's having issues in their sex life, even though they know they're having issues in their own sex life. But do you come forward and say that so people can laugh at you and be like, hey, what are you, 13 again? Blah, 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 blah. What do you mean you're shooting
And
before
my
anything
friends are
happens?
like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, they'll just joke about it. Like, they're probably even coming faster than I do, but
See? But so you hold that inside.
Yeah.
You never get help, but then you constantly think there's something wrong with you, but you don't have anybody to tell. You don't know where to go to for help. And so while I say create those intentional spaces and communities and really exist and allow people to show up with what they have, also, like I said, find a facilitator. Schedule time with me, do virtual times with me, 1 hour talks, like, hey.
How much, averagely, how much do your classes cost?
So if we're doing group work, it's different. And to be honest and fair, I have different rates for different countries.
Okay.
So I don't have a hard Ugandan rate right now. Corporates are always charged in dollars.
This podcast, the podcast world is quite interesting. So about 25% of the people that listen to this podcast are the USA. Another 15 is in, say, there's Canada, USA, and okay, we have Uganda and East Africa in a whole consume 50%.
That's a big
then
percentage.
30% Ugandan and about 20% Kenya.
Okay.
Yeah. So then there's bits of Europe in there. Yeah.
Yeah, so the best thing would be just to reach out to me by
Okay.
email. And that email, should I give it?
Yeah.
Okay, the email
Any details
is
you want to give?
okay. Is info at intimacy coaching with spelled out Erica with a C.com. So again, it's info at
intimacy coaching
with Erica.
Does this mean there's also the intimacy website?
Yes, this is also the website, intimacy coaching with Erica.com. With is spelled out, Erica is with the C, ERICA.
Wow, interesting. So as we conclude, what are your hopes and dreams for the future of love, intimacy, and human connection?
Oh, my hopes and dreams is for more people to be able to access the fullness of pleasure. And pleasure isn't just around penetration. It's about being able to be who you truly are and knowing that that is beautiful and knowing that there are people around you who are going to love and celebrate you for the person that you are. And that as that most authentic, beautiful side of you is showing up in this world, you are also tapping into the areas of pleasure, like physical pleasure, emotional pleasure, that resonate with you, feel true for you, and allow you to be fully expressive. So my hopes and dreams are that we're able to like truly navigate ruptures and challenges. My hopes and dreams are that marriages are able to be more sustained. My hopes and dreams are that like relationships are fulfilling and not taxing, and that I can be one of the conduits in that space to really let people hold on to, explore, navigate without judgment, without shame, the fullness of what they need to thrive in that space.
What advice would you give someone seeking deeper meaning and purpose in their life?
Get curious. Get so curious. Read, listen to podcasts, reach out to people, reach out to resources. Like, you'd be so surprised to know how many people of books you've read, podcasts you've listened to, websites you've gone to, webinars you've attended, how those people want to hear from you. They want to guide you more. And stop caring about what other people think. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you feel and what you know. Because people are always going to have something to say. It does not have to be aligned with your experience. So, yeah, move the way you know you need to move to get to where you know you want to be.
Interesting. Yeah. How can we harness the power of intimacy to create a more loving and connected world?
Grace. Offer each other grace. Remember what I said about we're all imperfect. We're all going to fuck up at some point. But if we start living this life and operating from a container of grace, to give people grace when they make mistakes, to give people grace when they don't show up in the way that we want them to show up, to give people grace to just be and to make mistakes and to forgive, I think we would live in such a dynamic world.
Unless you have questions for me, this has been very beautiful. I thank you, really, genuinely. Thank you.
Thank you,
for coming on
Mark.
the podcast. Yeah, this is beautiful. But you are allowed to ask questions, really, on the podcast.
Okay, I mean, I don't have it. I think I asked along the way. So I am good.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah?
Thank
We're
you.
good? Alrighty. You're welcome.